So in this episode we went to Doila on the north coast of Estonia. This place is actually quite close to Kuremäe and Narva where we've been before, and feel free to check out that video if you'd like to watch it. So the first site we saw in Doila was the Jogi, which means Holy River. It basically flows through Doila and into the Baltic Sea or the Gulf of Finland. You can see loads of cool little mini waterfalls, and it sort of cascades down and it meanders really nicely, and it goes through a park called Oru Park. So we went downstream to Oru Park, where we discovered in the park there is a German war memorial. The Germans actually built this war memorial in 1944 to commemorate Germans who lost their lives fighting the Soviets on the Narva front. So effectively this war memorial is actually a Nazi war memorial. Estonia actually made the cemetery visible again in 1999. I think the purpose of it is just to remember that all sides lose lives, and maybe it isn't always up to them, because some of the names on there were very, very young as 18 and 19. It's very difficult to know why someone is fighting for another country. Sometimes they're brainwashed, sometimes they want to do it, sometimes they don't want to do it. So I think at the end of the day all sides lose lives, and it's a waste of life really, isn't it? Christina's parents came with us and they were getting a bit tired, so they decided we'd go to the Doila Spa Hotel because we'd booked it. This hotel was built in 1989, just at the end of the Soviet era, and it was refurbished in the 2000s. It is quite dated in a sense of the style, but it was really nice. You get sea views and the usual array of saunas and spa treatments, and the food was really good. Anyway, the next day we went down to Oru Park again and were greeted by some lovely polar bears. Then we headed down to the beach. Now, the sea was quite rough and it was really windy and cold, but the sky was a beautiful blue. There's also like a harbour there, and there's a seawall, and what was happening was the waves were crashing against the seawall and then freezing, forming these large ice chunks. You could still walk on these ice chunks, but they were starting to thaw out, and it was really rather exposed on there. It really was quite cold. Also, funnily enough, we noticed that even though it was beautiful blue skies on that day, there were these dark clouds over Narva, and it reminds me of one of our viewers telling me that the old 5 krone note had dark clouds above Narva. So if you look at the old 5 krone note, you can see on the right side where Ivangorod Castle is, there's some dark clouds. I also drew some pixel art of that scene, sort of to remind myself of the time we went to Narva. And yeah, you can definitely see that there's darker clouds there. And there's this old Estonian joke there where people say, oh yeah, bad things always come from the east. I think that's very true, isn't it, today? Then from the mouth of the river we went back upstream to check out the Oru Park again. It's actually got some really nice views. You can see the meandering river going down into the Baltic Sea. There's some nice little ducks there. They also have an open air stage, very common in Estonia. And the park is actually famous because effectively there was a palace there, but that was lost during the Second World War. It was destroyed. But it's famous because the first Estonian president, Konstantin Päts, stayed there in the summer, so it was like his summer residence. Konstantin Päts was the Estonian president from 1938 to 1940, though he did play a massive role initially in 1918 when Estonia first got its independence. So Konstantin Päts had a really torrid time of it during his presidential term because the Soviets basically took over during that time. So effectively what happened was he was forced to sign lots of decrees in favour of the Soviet Union. He was also forced to elect a Soviet puppet as Prime Minister, and you know, some people say effectively Konstantin Päts was turned into a puppet because of all the decrees he signed. Anyway, eventually they put him under house arrest, and they actually put his children in an orphanage and separated his family. What's really quite shocking then is they put him in a psychiatric hospital. I don't fully understand why the Soviets put him in a psychiatric hospital, but apparently the justification was that he was crazy and he kept going on and on and on about being the Estonian president. But that was true, he was the Estonian president until the Soviets came along. And sadly, Konstantin Päts actually died in that hospital in 1956. We then drove west along the coast to a place called Valaste. Valaste has this really cool waterfall, Valaste Waterfall, or Valaste Jogi, and basically you can get some really good views, because what they've done is they've built loads of steps and viewing platforms all the way down to the beach, so you go down the cliffs and you can film the waterfall, and it's really, really cool. So the waterfall is quite spectacular because what was happening was it was cascading down the cliff, and then it was basically carving out a hole in the ice, because it was just starting to thaw out. I'm not sure if it freezes completely during the winter, I'm assuming it does, but it was thawing out and it was carving this massive hole into the ice. Also, the spray coming off the waterfall was sort of like enveloping itself around the branches nearby on the trees, and that was quite cool. We also got there at a really good time because the sun was coming up and it was just shining through the mouth of the waterfall, and it was really pretty. So the sun now is just peering through there, through the gap in the waterfall. Oh wow. We also took the steps down. They were quite slippery, but it does say it's not maintained in the winter. But we went down anyway and had a look at the beach, and apparently there's a hiking trail you can take along there, but we weren't going to do that today. Anyway, we got a bit peckish, so we decided to go down to a restaurant. Now there's a restaurant just south of Valaste waterfall, and it's in a palace, and this palace is called Saka Mõis. Now this palace has been refurbished and whatnot, so I believe it mainly holds like wedding functions and that kind of thing. Oh. But anyway, we headed down to get some food and it was really good. We had some duck and some chocolate dessert, and it really was tasty. We highly recommend going there actually. And then we headed a bit further south again because we wanted to go to the Estonian Mining Museum. Now this mining museum is basically a mine that's been decommissioned. It was operating from about 1937 to 2001. Basically, usually you can get underground tours, but they only happen on Saturdays at the moment. But you could still walk around and have a look, and it was closed when we got there. It was about 5 o'clock. But the scale of some of the machinery that we could see was awesome. There were these massive piles of debris and dirt that were surrounding the mine. That must have been there for a while because there's trees and whatnot growing on them, and it looks like some people have tried to sledge down them. Also, a few fun facts about the place. In the winter it got very cold and all the buildings were quite spread out, so they used to have to burn shale oil, which is actually what they mined there, and they were burning 2 to 4 tons a day just to keep the buildings warm. But because the buildings were so far apart, the long pipes used to connect the boilers to the different buildings, they were so long, they were really inefficient. You know, you were losing a lot of heat in the pipes. Another fun fact, the working conditions there weren't great. In the late 1970s, they only just had access to hot meals, and the meals weren't really that hot by the time they got to the miners underground because they had to go by mining cart, which isn't the quickest form of travel. So yeah, and the worst part was they had to pay for their meals, so these meals weren't even provided for free or part of the service. They had to pay for them out of their wages. So we then wanted to go to Kuremäe, but we got a bit lost and we ended up on a private road. Now the road was signed off saying private road, you know, anything that happens is your own responsibility, and on Google Maps we were basically just driving in a field. It wasn't even registered on that. But it was really weird. We encountered a police car on that road. So basically we were driving along and there was a police car parked up, the lights are on, not the blue flashing lights, just his full beams, and we were driving towards it and I was like, what's this police car doing here? Anyway, I just gave them a quick nod and I was thinking that they were wondering what the hell we were doing there, and I was wondering the same thing about them. Let me know in the chat if you know what they're doing. I mean, they're in the middle of nowhere. Maybe they're trying to catch amateur rally drivers being naughty on the private roads. Anyway, we managed to get back on the main road because our aim was to go to Kuremäe. Now Kuremäe is a nunnery. It's a Russian Orthodox nunnery, and it's the only one that's currently active in Estonia. And the church itself was amazing, a really amazing building. All the nuns were dressed in black, so I guess you call them the Black Nun. And if you've ever been to Llangranog in Wales, you'll know what I'm on about. Very creepy. But it was actually creepy. We went into the church itself and there were no electrical lights, just all candles. And all you could smell were incense candles. And the Russian Orthodox nuns were chanting away in Russian, and I was actually a bit creeped out. So we were only in there for about 30 seconds a minute, and then we went out. I don't know. I felt a bit freaked out. Basically, then we walked a bit around and we drove home and enjoyed the really amazing sunset. We actually really treated to a lovely crescent moon. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Leave a comment down below as well if you'd like to. We really do enjoy every subscriber that we get. Every subscriber brings a smile on our face. And I also want to say, come check out our Twitter, because on our Twitter page I often post little bits of artwork just to remind ourselves of all the places we've been to in Estonia. I only have 21 followers on there, so let's have some more, why don't we? So come follow me on Twitter if you want to see some more pictures and little thoughts and whatnot. Tweets, I think you call them. Thank you very much for watching our video. I'm actually going to add 3 icons to the map, I think, in this video, so fantastic. Anyway, see you later.